online for, oh, okay. I've been selling online for approximately coming up on about 4 years. And honestly, I just really fell into it. I have my degree in marketing and then healthcare administration, and I was off working at a Fortune 500 company. And then my own health kind of digressed. And so I just kind of started pulling clothes out of my closet to sell and, pay the bills while I got some of that other stuff figured out. And so I've continued to kind of work at it and grow and learn and try different things. And so I am by no means the largest player in the market, but I'm hoping I can give you all like a good introduction and answer some questions as you get started trying to maybe do this a little bit yourself. So let's see here. So I basically just thought I would go through what the options are, just so everyone's aware of what is out on the market, kind of walk you through what I do in regards to some research to get kind of the right price and figure out if I think something can sell. And then I thought I would walk everybody through just like how to physically list to make a listing. I'm not going to go through every detail because it would get really tedious to try to do that with a big group, but just so you kind of know my strategy for listing successful listings, and then what to do when your item sells. So there are a lot of online platforms out there, and they continue to there continues to be more. And so I don't know if any of you have looked into selling online at all, but it can definitely get overwhelming. Some of them are more broad and some of them are more niche. But you can get lost in all the different platforms. So when I was thinking about this group and how I would kind of focus efforts, I thought at most I would consider these 3 platforms. So Facebook Marketplace, eBay, and Mercari. And this is just kind of each of their like taglines that they have. But the reason that I thought about these platforms in particular is that Facebook Marketplace and Mercari are really geared towards beginner sellers. The way that they've set up, like kind of the way that they list, is really prescriptive. So it guides you through the listing process in a way that is really easy for someone that isn't, maybe just has one thing here or there to offload. And then on the flip side, like when something sells, they also do a lot of pre-arranged in regards to shipping and things like that. So it just makes it a lot easier for a casual or beginner seller to kind of have a no fuss experience, especially as you're kind of dipping your toe into the water. And then obviously, if you have a Facebook account, you basically already have a Facebook Marketplace account. So I don't know if any of you have explored that, but like, I guess I don't know. I think about it on my phone, so it could be a little bit different on an iPad or different, but those tabs down on the bottom with like your profile and whatever, one of those is Marketplace. So you basically can just touch that and you can list right from there. So they're really accessible to a beginner seller. And also, depending on what types of items you're trying to get rid of, the Facebook kind of local option can be really great for things like furniture or bikes or like things that you might be a little less comfortable throwing in the mail, like an electronic. So I would consider those for that. And then on kind of the flip side, eBay, I think everyone is probably aware of eBay, depending on how much you've like interacted with it, probably varies, but it's been around the longest. No question has the most customers, and no question is like the place to go and sell literally anything. I mean, the stuff that's on eBay is very broad. And then you can gain like international sellers and things like that you can't on a lot of other platforms. But it does have it is maybe one step up in terms of they just have a lot more shipping options. Then you're starting to get into auctions. If you'd like, you don't have to do auctions, but there's some customization and different things like that can make it just a little bit more complicated. You get more control over it, but it does have that next level of, maybe a little bit more complicated. So So that's kind of the platforms that I would consider if I were kind of recommending things to this group. And so then if I have a product that I want to sell, I need to decide if it's worth it, right? And for me, that means a little bit more because I do a lot of like buying at garage sales and then reselling. So I need to decide if it's worth it for me to pick it up and buy it. It sounds like most if ever not everything that's talked about in this group is things that are already sitting in your house. So that calculation is maybe a little bit different. But still you're going to be going through the effort of listing something and shipping it out and paying attention to it. And so if you're going to try to sell something that takes a year and only makes you $5, you might just be better off at using the list that Marianne referenced earlier and donating it, right? So the way that I kind of think about two things when I'm thinking about what I want to put up and list. One is price, like how much is it worth and how much can I sell it for, right? And then the second is kind of what I would say is like throughput, which for you all would just basically mean, is it going to sell quickly or not? Is it going to sit, am I going to get it all ready and listed and sell it in a week, or is it going to take 2 years? And so that's kind of that calculus. So the way that I do that, I think the most important tool that you can utilize to do that is to look at what else is already out on the market that other people are trying to sell or have sold successfully, right? So what is listed and then what is listed as being sold, because people can put anything out there and say it's worth $100,000, but it's really only worth what someone's willing to pay for it, right? So if anybody remembers or has like Beanie Babies, I feel like there's like, if you go on eBay and look for like that Princess Diana Beanie Baby, I mean, there are people trying to sell it for $300,000. And then if you flip over and look at what people are buying it for, it's, maybe a couple hundred or something like that. Right. So, so that's kind of what I look at. And I utilize that to kind of figure out how I should price my own item and then what I should expect in terms of how quickly it may sell. So I thought that the best way to kind of show you guys this would be to walk through like an actual example of how I do it on eBay. And so I just kind of arbitrarily picked something. And so I picked these two little Hummel figurines. I don't know if anybody here has or had or grew up with Hummels, but they're little figurines made in Germany, and there's a ton of them. And part of the reason that I picked this is because there's a ton of variation in what they're worth. And so I thought it would be helpful to show why it's important to kind of, look at your item and do a little bit of work to research it so that you don't completely over or underprice it. So I'm going to flip over into eBay itself. So hopefully everybody sees an eBay screen with find it all out at the brand outlet. Are you all seeing an eBay screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is the eBay homepage. I don't know. I'm kind of going a little bit under the assumption that people have been on eBay. I'm sorry if that's incorrect, but this is basically what you would, if you type in ebay.com, this is what you would find. And so if I looked at a pickleball paddle earlier in case anyone was wondering. But if I typed in, for example, vintage Hummel, this is what's gonna show up for me. And as you can see, there are 14,000 results that eBay is showing. That means there's over 14,000 live. Can you all see my mouse when I move it as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I wanted to make sure so you knew where I was pointing. Okay, so there's over 14,000 live listings right now for things that people have tagged as vintage Hummels. So that's a lot, right? And I think if we scroll down, we can find that there's some variability in the price. So $34, $5, $20, $10. I mean, they may all be low price right now. It just kind of depends on what eBay wants to show me, but we could get really lost in all of these results, right? Because there's just so many. And I have to move this a little bit so I can see it. Okay, so eBay also wants to show me what it thinks is my best match, because remember, it's thinking of me as a buyer, right? So it wants to show me what it thinks that I want to buy, right? So this, I'm going to show you kind of 2 to 3 areas you can play around with to show you, to help you kind of. So this little drop down over here gives you a couple options. You can look at it by eBay's algorithm, what it thinks is your best match, the newest or the listings that are about to end, the highest and lowest prices, and then distance, which I would just completely ignore. I don't think I've ever used that once in my life. I honestly only care about the highest price because I want to make sure before anything else, I want to make sure I'm not sitting on a diamond that I didn't know about, right? And then I'll kind of get closer and closer. So I can flip over to highest price, and now you can see.
Wow.
Potentially. Now, again, this is what someone's asking for it. We haven't proved that someone will pay that. But if I had a skier boy Hummel right now sitting in my house, I would certainly be trying to dig it out of a closet or whatever. Or if I had a nativity set, or, you can kind of see here which ones seem to be. And now here's another nativity set, right? So now I'm going, well, that a couple people think that has some value, right? Because 2 people in a row are thinking that it's that, right? Hansel and Gretel also seem to be, so you kind of get the idea, right? Here's another nativity set. So clearly there are people trying to sell this nativity set. Again, this is the price they're asking. So we don't know if anybody is going to buy it at that price, but it tells me if I was at a estate sale and I saw one of these for sale, that would definitely pique my interest, that these seem to be worth, $1,000 or more dollars. But as I'll probably say way too many times today, it's only worth what someone's willing to buy it for. So what I always do when I'm looking at products is I want to see the solds. I want to see what people actually bought and completed a transaction about. So the other thing I want to show you is down here. eBay doesn't make it super easy. It's down all the way at the bottom. But there is a button right here that says sold items. So if I click that, now everything I'm seeing is what's sold in the last, I can't remember if it's 90 days or 120, but essentially 3 or 4 months. So pretty recent data. And now you can see, right, that these nativity sets do seem to sell for a decent amount of money, right? And the other thing you can see, though, is that once I flip over to the sold items, there's only 3,100. So there's over 14,000 for sale, and only 3,000 of them have sold, right? Too many vintage Hummels. So I need to narrow my search because I want to know my specific thing that I have. So I might try saying, well, what about a vintage Hummel boy? Because I have a boy. Well, now that looks like the one that I have, right? And I may flip back over, and this is where you can kind of flip back and forth and decide, if it's the one that's newly listed or whatever. And I would just start looking through these solds, because now I went from 3,000 down to 1,000, right? Still kind of a lot, but getting closer. Still a lot of variability though. Like some of them seem to be selling for $10 and $45. And okay, so let's try, what if I put in boy, girl? So now I'm down to 370 results, right? So I've gotten myself from 14,000 to 370. And I'm going to still check one more thing. And I'm going to say, what about if I add the word umbrella? There we go. And now I have 63, which feels way more manageable to me than the 14,000 or the 3,000 or whichever way you want to say it. And so now I feel pretty confident that I can come up with a price, right? Like I can kind of flip through these and decide that, you know, a certain these, that's not mine, but here's one that looks like mine. And but I have the boy and the girl, right? And here's the boy and the girl, and that one sold for 142. This one sold for 108. That one doesn't look like mine. Well, that's weird. Why is that one 275, right? So I can kind of start to get really close to like what I specifically have and what price that I could maybe charge for it. Does that make sense? I'll stop here for just a second and see if anybody has a question that kind of relates to what I'm doing here right now.
It all makes sense.
Okay.
Yes.
The last thing I would do, especially if I was kind of sitting, I'll go back to the highest. I'd say like, well, why is this one $600? You know, like, I don't understand. But the last thing that I do, especially once I've kind of found what I'm looking for, I do like to just click into one or two of the listings and read what other sellers have said. And the reason I do that is I think it often, especially with like the ones that sell for the most, have some feature that I may not know about, right? So with a Hummel, it could be a date stamp or, you know, like a manufacturer's error or something, you know, where like, oh, they made the umbrella blue for 6 months and then they switched it over to red. So the one that has the blue umbrella is the really valuable one. And you'd be shocked at how often that is like what it is. So I always just, if there's a really high one, I'll just click in and look and see what the other person has chosen to call out, because that will give me a clue to look at my own and say like, oh, mine is also, you know, has this weird West Germany, because obviously some of these say West Germany on them. Mine also has that weird stamp on the bottom, and I wouldn't have even thought. And so the difference between this person's and mine is, you know, a couple $100. So that's what I like to do when I'm kind of trying to look through different items and just get a ballpark for what mine's worth. And if you're sitting on any sort of collection, this first part can, you know, to kind of get yourself set up can take a little while. But then what I would sit here and do is I'm looking at solds, I'm looking from highest to lowest, and I don't really know anything about Hummels, but so then I would sit here and I would go, okay, vintage Hummel nativity. And I would look at the price, and then I could do vintage Hummel horse. I don't know if there is one. There you go. I don't know. There you go. The Pony Express one. So I would, once you kind of get yourself up and running, going through for like items like this can actually be pretty quick to give you an idea of where your price is at. So let me just make sure I said what I wanted to see. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to switch back over. And I think I went through all of that. And so this is just for your reference later. Those are kind of the 3 places to pay attention to as you're kind of looking up some of these items. So once you've kind of decided, like, great, I'm in the game. I have these figurines and I think they're worth $150. Awesome. Now what? How do I actually list this item? And like, what do I need to do to make sure I like get a buyer, and how do I actually complete the process? So I basically break down I was kind of breaking down listing items into 5 pieces, right? So the 5 important parts are your photographs, title, descriptions, what I'll call click button descriptors, and I'll walk through that. And then the shipping information. And just kind of as we go through this, some advice that was given to me early on was to think like a buyer. So some of you may do a lot or a little bit of online buying, but like when you're looking for something, like what do you look for? Just kind of remind yourself, like, what is a buyer going to look for in my item, right? And so I pay pretty good attention to my photographs, because when I'm a buyer and I find a listing and I don't feel like the photographs are clear, I always feel like someone's trying to hide something from me, and I move on very quickly. So, if somebody takes one picture and puts it up and is like, here, buy my, my pickleball paddle. I'm like, why are you only showing one side of it? What's on the other side? Like, I'm kind of a skeptic when it comes to buying. And so I think about that when I'm creating my own listings. So it does not, I will say, if I had to say one thing about photographs, is that it does not need to be fancy. They just need to be clear. So your phone, your smartphone or your iPad or whatever will work. You do not need to get anything out fancy. My setup is like just a white wall with a white tablecloth. You can kind of see it. I mean, I used to use wood floors, but it's a white wall with a white tablecloth. So it is nothing fancy. And in fact, for reasons that are outside the scope of this presentation, as far as like Google goes, you're way better off just having a plain white background. So that's just the reality, but that's a different story for a different day. So the thing I think about photographs is like digital is free, right? So, I may be like bringing the age a little bit down in here, but I still was around when things were doubles and prints and things like that, and was like kind of like hoarded photographs. And but digital's free, so you can take as many as you want, and it doesn't cost anything. So take a clear just image of your whole item, and then do as much as you can around angles, and make sure you get the inside and the bottom. Make sure you get measurements. And I would say the most important thing is if there's any flaws to your item, make sure you photograph that, right? Because you're gonna save yourself headaches later if you sell something and then someone, receives it and says, you never said that there was a crack, or you never said this, right? So I tend to be a little bit overly sensitive on that stuff, just because then I know I'm covering myself, like here's, I'm not even sure this is a flaw, but here's a picture of it just in case, so this isn't like a super intense item, but here's something I photographed recently. Again, it's not super fancy, right? Here's the item picture, tried to do the top and the bottom. I took a picture of the inside, of the labels and marking, and then one of the measurements, so that people know how big, that they're not getting like a mini one or a super big one or whatever, right? So that's about as much as you need to do. Just bright and crisp and clear. And then you're going to go to your title. And you're typically going to get like 70 to 80 characters. And my takeaway from this would be to use it all. So you want to pack in as many words or descriptors as you can, because that kind of that keyword search is how people are going to be able to find your product, right? So don't waste any space, I would say. And the reason for that is we'll kind of go back to this Hummel example. So if you just titled your item Vintage Hummel, it would show up in that 14,000 that we just showed, right? And so it's going to get lost really easily. Like how your chances of someone finding yours are 1 in 14,000. And the only things that are going to bring up your listing is if someone types Vintage Hummel, Hummel Vintage, Hummel, like that's it. But if you use all the characters, and this fits, I'm pretty sure I checked it to make sure that this is what I could actually write. So, and it doesn't need to read like we speak. So it's just a series of words. So Vintage Hummel, boy, girl, umbrella, Germany, jumbo, 8-inch, like those are all the things that matter. And so not only is it going to help me stay in that pool as it continues to get smaller and smaller, but it may help grab someone that's just is looking for an 8-inch Hummel. They might not be looking for a specific one, but they know they want a big one versus a little one. So kind of do as much as you can. And even if you are starting to kind of run out of things, I always throw colors in there, because you never know when someone's looking for like something blue to match their thing in their living room or whatever. So going back to the example that I was just talking about. So again, I think I used every single character because I like to try to get as close as possible. And I just do whatever I can because someone might call that item a percolator, someone might call it a carafe, someone may call it, be looking for the specific size or the color. And so I just do whatever I can to try to give a title that's going to grab whatever people might use to try to find my item. The next thing is the description. And so my advice here is just try to write your description like people can't see your photographs, because people aren't always really good at looking. Every once in a while I'll get someone asking me a question about a listing and I'll be like, did I forget to upload that photograph? What is going on? And I'll go back and look and I'm like, no, it's there. Someone just only looked at the first 4 or 5 and then just like went right away to ask. So I also do it for myself. So then I'm like, okay, yep, it's there. I don't need to remeasure something or recheck something. I know that it's there. And so it will also potentially save you time if people are asking questions to know that it's there and you can just refer them back to your listing.
Do you have to have a photograph?
You have to have any photographs?
Yes.
Yeah. You can't list, you cannot create an eBay listing and post it without a photograph. It'll stop you from creating sometimes I'll forget to upload it and it'll say you need to go back and add some photographs. There isn't a minimum, there is a maximum. It's a little bit variable by platform, but I would say if you consider 12 plus or minus is kind of the amount that you can fit. But I would, like I said, I would recommend more, because if you just have one, unless it's something really simple, people are going to want to see, even if it's something in a box, I take a picture of the front and the back because then people can read the description on the box or whatever. Right. So, but yes, it will not, there are certain fields in any listing, and I'll talk through this a little bit at the click button descriptors that are optional. And then there's certain that are required, and eBay or Facebook or whatever will prevent you from clicking publish until you've hit their basic criteria. I have to admit that if I could make an improvement for myself in listing, it would be in my descriptions. I just want to when I'm in the mode, I just want to get them listed. And so I have a tendency to get a little short on these. But I do make sure that I put in a note for the description, that the measurements are in the photos. And then if there's multiple pieces and stuff, I make sure to reference that. And then obviously if there's any flaws, again, I make sure to reference that as well, just because I want to make sure, really want to cover my butt in case there's a flaw. And then, so it'll kind of go in order, right? So it'll be title, description, and then at the bottom on every platform, there'll be these click button descriptors. I don't think there's an official name. That's the name I came up with, but, and they all look pretty similar and they're very guided. It basically is just the table stakes for the platform. So it'll ask you what the brand is, if there is one, and if there's not, or you don't know it, you can say you don't know it. It'll ask you for a color or a size or a condition, just so that it kind of levels the playing field amongst all the items. So, and you won't be able to publish without kind of filling in the ones that they require you to, which is usually the condition, and often the brand. And beyond that, then it's just kind of your choice, how much of that information that you feel is helpful to put in. But this is one of them. And so you can just see here, condition, new, like new, good, fair, poor, brand, color, things like that.
Katie,
Yeah.
we're about half an hour in and
Okay.
want to make sure you've got time to get to Marketplace and the other one too.
So I was not actually going to go through like each individual
No,
one.
that's fine, just what the differences are with
Yep.
those,
Yep.
yeah.
So I just was going to run through kind of the shipping and then what to do kind of towards the end and then answer any questions. So
Great.
the last thing you'll need to know before you get something listed is how you'd like to ship it. Which unless you're talking about something that's really like awkwardly sized, like you're going to sell golf clubs or, you know, something like that, but pretty much anything that, you know, is kind of here. The size matters not very much. The weight is what matters. The weight is what the post office cares about. And I would say if we want to keep it really simple, the thing that really matters is whether or not it's over or under 1 pound. You can get things, if you really want to get things down to like the ounces, you can get it a little bit like more accurate, but if to keep it simple as you're kind of getting your feet wet, I would say as long as you know if it's over or less, more or less than 1 pound is like what's going to matter. So if you have like a kitchen scale, that's what I use, is a kitchen scale just to weigh something, great. Otherwise, I'm sure there's like, you could Google the common weight of certain items or use a weight that you have in your house to kind of compare. But it's that 1 pound that kind of matters to the post office. This slide is kind of messy. I get that. But the reason I brought it up is because I just wanted to show you what I mean when I say that Mercari and Facebook kind of guide you more than eBay does. So the ones on the right, what you'll see is basically you'll just type in, like, so here on Facebook, I just said, oh, my item is 1 to 2 pounds, or, you know, it's less than ½ pound. It's a ½ pound to a pound. It's 1 to 2 down, you know, so forth. And as soon as you do that, Facebook says, great. It's 2 pounds. Awesome. And that's basically all you have to do. Sometimes you can choose between 2 shipping. It's say, do you want to send it? Do you want to go to UPS when it sells, or do you want to go to the post office? But that's it. You don't have to know anything else. And same with Mercari, same thing. So you could say my item is 2 pounds right here, and it gives you, you know, 2 or 3 options, but it's fairly straightforward. And that is a cost that the buyer incurs. So it doesn't come out of your pocket. That's something that the buyer incurs. You can do free shipping. I don't generally. So that is something that would not come out of your profit. eBay, you can see on the left, they offer everything under the sun. And that's what makes it a little bit more complicated, is there's just, you can choose any kind of shipping that you could ever dream of, the end. As I was thinking about this for this group, if I were to advise specifically, I would go with kind of the keep it simple method, and I would just priority mail. It might be a little bit more expensive, but I would just do calculated priority mail, where kind of the same thing. I would just say like priority mail, and it's 1 pound, 8 ounces, or it's 4 pounds, 5 ounces. And I would just do that one option. There's a chance you could get a little pushback from people because it can be a little bit more expensive, but in general, it's going to be the easiest. It's going to be the most reliable. It's going to be the fastest. It's going to be all those things. Plus the shipping supplies are free. If you go to your post office, you can get the boxes, so you don't have to find boxes and things like that. And so that's, if I just had a handful of items and I didn't really want to learn too much about shipping, I would just say priority mail and put in the weight. So that would be my takeaway for that.
Or you can go to the USPS website and have them ship you boxes.
Yes, you can. Yep. Yep. If you're going to do more, like if you have a bunch of stuff, you can go online and they'll ship you free shipping supplies, and it's great. I try to use priority mail as much as possible because then I don't have to be scrounging around for boxes all the time. So does anybody have any questions kind of on that chunk of the presentation, or anything really so far?
So with the price that you put on the item, that is without the shipping, the way you
Yep.
do it. And
Yep.
but you do list somewhere what the shipping will be, cost will be.
Yep, or you don't even have to put it in. So like when you click those buttons on Facebook, for example, when a buyer comes to look at it, it'll say, you know, $99 plus, you know, $7.32 shipping or whatever. And then when they check out, when they like go to buy the item, it'll calculate all that for you. So you don't really have to do anything. So
Okay.
if you get to a place where you're like getting a little bit more progressive on eBay and offering more shipping options, then when the buyer checks out, it'll offer them those options. It will say, would you like to do first class or priority mail or whatever? And then, but nope, you don't have to input it in terms of like showing the customer what it is. eBay will, and all those sites will just calculate it for you. So now we know the price, we walked through all those, you know, we got our pictures, we got our descriptions, we list it. Great. Now you can honestly just sit on it. You may have people ask you questions, you know, there may be some back and forth there, but then you kind of just wait until it sells. Which is great. It sells, you know, that's awesome. And so now you need to actually like kind of get it to a customer. And so again, I'll differentiate a little bit between eBay and others. So this is actually
You
something
might
else.
want to watch this for the FedEx part.
I didn't quite catch that. Am I good to go? So on Facebook and Mercari, when you sell something, you will get an email and it'll look just like this. I mean, the Facebook one will say Facebook, but it'll essentially look like this. And so this is, again, something that makes it a little bit easier because they will send you an email just like this. And this print shipping label is like an actual link. So you click on it and the shipping label just shows up. They pre-make it for you. It shows up, you print it out, bring your item to the post office. So it's pretty easy. If you don't have a printer, they are actually both starting to do a thing where they'll scan it. So you bring your phone with you to the post office and show them this, or there'll be another little link, but the same idea. And they will print the label for you. So they're really trying to help casual sellers or sellers that don't necessarily have, you know, that was like holding people back, right? Like, I don't have a printer. Like there's a lot of, like, none of my people younger than me, like, have a printer. Like my nieces and nephews don't, like, nobody. Anyway. So that was holding a certain demographic back from becoming sellers. So they've started to work around that. So if you also don't have a printer, that does not discount you from selling things. With eBay, it's basically the same process, but because there's more shipping options, you basically just have to log back into eBay and print the label from there. So it's just one little step that's a little bit different. But the process is basically the same. You never have to know someone's address. The platform does that part for you. So you never have to worry about entering an address incorrectly. Or, you know, inverting a number, or even, I don't know what else you could do, but basically all of the platforms have a commonality that when you click print the label, they populate it for you. So you don't have to do any of that work around populating it and entering zip codes or anything like that. And so then you can just drop it off at the post office and wait for delivery. And once that part is done, as soon as the customer accepts the sale, then that's when the money will exchange into your account. So that is how you get paid for that. So I guess I'll take a breath and I'd love to answer any questions people may have or clarify anything that I talked through. If people have another example that they want me to try, I'd be happy to do that as well, or I'm open, here to help.
Do you ever not get paid?
No. So the nice thing is, all of those platforms act as kind of like, I guess you'd call it maybe like a mini escrow. So as soon as the, just one second. So as soon as someone buys, the money leaves their bank account, and eBay or Facebook or whatever kind of holds that in a middle account.
Oh.
And then as soon as that item is delivered and someone accepts that transaction, like, yep, it's been delivered, then that money leaves the like eBay account and goes to your account. So there's not a way for you to not get paid, because you would never even get the shipping label or the sale until that person has like done the transaction on their side.
Oh, okay.
So when you set up your account, you either give them a PayPal account or your bank account or something that
Yep,
eBay would put the money in?
exactly. Yep. So when you set up any sort of marketplace account, it's pretty, it's pretty basic information, your name and stuff. And then you will have to have a bank account linked so that they have a place to send that money.
Should you have a separate account for that?
I do. I didn't at the beginning, but then I was like, I'm getting more into this. I should probably not just have it coming in and out of my like regular bank account, so that I can, because I do enough that I need to like worry about taxes and things like that. So I do, but you don't have to. It doesn't matter. I originally just had it set up with my regular checking account, and that was never a problem. So
But that's something that the buyer never sees. It's
they
the,
would never see that. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Nope.
So the buyer doesn't see it, so you know the person is not trying to scam you.
Correct. Yep. The nice thing is that these platforms take on a lot of the risk. I would say as far as scams go, still always be on guard. Always work through the platform. So every once in a while, I'll get like a comment or something that's like, oh, this is really pretty. Can you send me some more pictures at, bob@gmail.com. And I'm like, so I'm always like, nope, I don't do any communication off the platform, because A, it just reeks of a scam, and B, you lose your protection, right? So eBay has a seller protection and Facebook has a seller protection like built into what they do. And if you start trying to go off the platform, then you lose that protection. So I wouldn't say that there are zero scams out there, but I would say if you follow the rules of the platform, that the company has that protection in there for you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mhm. Do you mail items to folks in the Twin Cities too, rather than
I have.
giving them things in person?
I have, but more off of like a lack of knowledge, I think. Like when people are on Facebook Marketplace, some people will like only look for things they can pick up, right? And some people are just like, oh no, I'm looking for a sweater. I didn't really pay attention to where it came from. And so sometimes I will like go to print a label and I'm like, this is like 4 blocks away. I could hand deliver this faster than, it feels almost kind of stupid to go to the post office, but I still go to the post office because I need it to I need it to go through the platform and I need them to like track that package. I do also do for Facebook though, I do offer, I like local, like when I'm making a Facebook listing, there's an option that you can click that says, local pickup only, shipping only, or both. And I choose both. I don't really do anything. I do a lot of things without contact. So I just leave them on my porch. And that has worked out just fine. I've never had an issue with that. I wouldn't do it with something really expensive, like if I was trying to sell an iPad, I wouldn't do that. But for like that Corningware carafe, if somebody asked if they could pick that up off my porch, I would do that. And I do that honestly. So this is just Katie's bias, part of it for convenience. And part of it is like, as a young woman, I feel safe, actually safer not having people see who I am. That's just me. So it's just easier if they never see me.
Well,
So
that makes sense because they
Yeah.
could think that you're aging at home people, but you're not.
yeah,
And then the next thing you know, it's a guy that you thought was 70 and he turns out to be 30 and is trying to take you out.
yeah, you're onto something. That's exactly why I do it. I'm like, I don't need any of that. So I'm just going to do contactless pickup. So that's what I do. And I've never had an issue. Never had anybody like steal anything. It's never been a problem.
How do you decide which of these platforms you're going to use for certain items?
Good question. So I personally just always listed on all three. Because I figure, but what's funny, Marianne, is that like I can with pretty good accuracy guess which platform I think it will sell on. But I do just figure like if I'm going to go through the work of like taking pictures and getting it listed, I'm going to take 2 more minutes and put it on all three because I might as well, because I don't know where the buyer is going to come from. It might be someone like scrolling through Facebook. It might be, you just never know. So I might as well just put it on all three and see, with some exceptions. So one of the main things I've been selling for Marianne's sister, or kind of exclusively, is collectible pens, like writing utensil pens. And I just knew for a lot of reason, like just from experience, that eBay was the place to go with those. And so I wasn't even bothering selling those on other platforms, but most other things I just put on all the platforms.
How do you keep track of things? Are you notified when you get a bid, or
Yep.
you just have to keep going back to?
Nope, you don't have to go back. You'll get an email when your item sells on any platform. The other thing that I didn't really talk about is that people can make offers on most of these platforms, and you can choose whether or not to like have that on. It's just like, again, when you're going through all those click buttons that we talked about, one of the click buttons will say like, would you like to consider offers on this item? So you may list those Hummels for 150 and you can decide like, nope, I'm only going to sell them if I can take 150 for them. Like, I don't even want to see anybody making an offer. Or you can say like, sure, I'll see what people want to offer. And so if someone comes through and says, how about 135, then you can decide whether or not you want to make that offer. So the only emails you will get are when people make an offer or when someone buys an item.
When someone asks you to sell things for them, how do you make that work? I know you probably choose what you think you can sell, perhaps.
Yeah.
And then also charge for the work that you do to get those sold.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of getting into the side of like selling things for other people. I've had people, friends just casually give me a few things here and there. And some of them are just like, hey, I was going to bring this bag to Goodwill. Can I just drop it? Do you want me to drop it in your porch instead? In which case I'm kind of like, yes, but like, then it's Goodwill, right? Like, I'm not going to come back and worry that I need to give you like $7 here and $5 there. Right. So, that's just kind of a gesture of friendship. As far as kind of more of on the kind of the profit making side, I can kind of ballpark things really quickly doing kind of what I showed you, right? So the first, if someone came to me and said, I have a bunch of these things, can you help me sell them? I'd say, hold, let me do a little research and see those two things, what they're worth and how quickly I think they can sell. And then just on a personal note for me, because of space, I need to make space accommodations as well, right? So selling pens was a no-brainer because I can have 1,000 of them in one box, right? And so I don't have to worry if they don't sell for a while, but they sell for a lot, then that's fine. So it's a little bit of like an art and a little bit of a science, right? So pens taking a long time to sell isn't as big of a deal as if someone was like, hey, do you want to sell all my golf clubs and my skis? I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know if I can do that because I just don't have the room to hold on to those unless they're going to sell really quickly.
You ever do silver or china?
I have not. No, I have not. Mm-mm.
Okay.
If I were going to do China, my recommendation just for you is, I would say there, the pattern is really important. So I would do some research trying to see if you can match your pattern. And the other thing I would do is a little research. I don't have the full answer for you on this. I'm just saying I would do a little research on how other people listed in terms of the separation of the items, because a lot of people, what they're looking for now, if they're looking for China, is kind of one of two things, either the whole set or they're looking to like replace a piece that broke, right? And so, you know, you may, and this is, I don't want to get too complicated, but like you may want to either kind of individually, you know, so like you can list 8 plates, but you can list them like each one individually. And that would be a little bit more complicated, but you could, I'll tell you, and then you can kind of research it. So you can make one listing where you have 8 plates, but each one only sells individually so that someone could come in and buy 2 or 4 or 5. And so that might be how I would consider with China, just because a lot of people are trying to like replace a specific part and a specific pattern.
So that's probably where we'd want to do a lot of research and just see what is selling.
Yeah.
In terms of
Yeah.
China and silverware.
Yeah, exactly. Because I would say, yeah, I mean, I just think the pattern matters. Like the maker and the pattern matter a lot on that. So I would research and try to find that. And if you don't know, without overloading people with a ton of information, but if you, one of my favorite tools that I use a lot, if I kind of know what something is, but I don't really, is Google reverse image search. I'm not sure if that's something a lot of people are familiar with, but you can take a picture of it and Google will do a reverse image search and it'll show you everything it finds that it thinks looks like your item. And so that can prove to be really helpful, like on a pattern or something like that, right? So if you took a picture of one of the plates and it reverse image searched those plates, it might come up. It may not, but it's got a pretty good success rate of an eBay listing where someone else has already done the work, figuring out that it's like the Starry Night, you know, Starry Night Sky pattern from whatever. And so it can save you a lot of time of trying to be like blue with stars and stuff, you know, so that's my shortcut that I use a lot.
Never heard of that.
I
Yeah,
never have
You want
either.
to stop sharing your screen for the last few minutes so we can see you?
sure. Yeah, I'm sorry. There you go.
That's okay. Are there any other questions? We've got about 10 minutes left. Few minutes.
So if you go onto Google and you just say reverse image search,
Yeah, you should be able to do it that way. There's also, here, I'm going to grab my phone. It is Google Photos.
oh,
Let's see. There's a lot of my Google stuff, but let's see if it might be too much of a glare there. That second one, it looks like a little fan.
oh yeah,
Yep. And then, so I can even kind of show you. Oh, here. So I bought a pair of Keens the other day, or I didn't buy them, but I got my hands on them. So there's a picture. And then there's just this little like button down here. It's like I don't know what it is. It's like a square with a square around it.
Yeah, okay.
I just click that and Google analyzes it. And it says, I'm kind of trying to do this backwards, but hopefully you can see. It comes up with all the things that it thinks looks like it.
My goodness.
And then, so what's great for me is like, it shows me that that's called the Keen Voyager Leather Hiking Shoe Omni Tech. So now I basically have my title, right? I just take that and I'm like, great, that's what I'm gonna title it. Because
Cool.
someone may be trying to replace their pair of Keen Voyager hiking shoes or whatever. So it is great. And you'd be shocked at like, I'll be at a garage sale where, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. And I'll take a picture of it and I can instantly kind of know like, oh, it sells on eBay for like $8 or like, okay, yeah, these seem to sell for like $90, like that kind of thing. So.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
What if you can't give a good picture of something you want to sell? What do you do?
Find a
Hmm.
friend.
Do you feel like you can't get a good picture of it because it's hard to photograph or maybe?
Yes, it's hard to photograph.
Well, I mean, I hate to give the answer of like, do the best you can, but that's it. I mean, sometimes when things are like things that are really long are hard to photograph, just because of the way your camera is set up. And so sometimes I just chunk it out, like take a picture of the top third, the middle third, and the bottom third. Or I try to do a really good close-up like of an edge so people can see like what a pattern is and kind of where the end of it is. Or I try to like fold things up if it's something that can be folded, just so I can get like one image. Cause like a quilt or something, for example, is really hard to take a picture of. And so when I get a quilt, I like fold it up neatly until it's like whatever that would be, like 2 feet by 2 feet or whatever, and take a picture of that. And then I kind of try to take a picture, just like try to give what I try to do is be representative of the item, right? And so it's really hard to take a picture of quilts. I've tried like from up here and I do the best I can, but I figure if I take, as long as I'm being honest and representative of what it is, if I get 3 or 4 pictures of like different pieces of it, and like, then I'll flip a corner and make sure I get the underside so people know what the other, like I'm not a quilter, but like the bottom side of it looks like, then that is kind of what I do with those. Cause otherwise, I mean, they're not, even if you can get them, they're not actually that nice to look at or that helpful. People want to see like what the close-up of that is anyway. So.
And the
Thank you.
colors are important with a quilt. That's hard to do with
Yeah,
fun lighting too.
I love selling quilts, by the way. So if anybody hand makes quilts, you can sell them.
I have an antique quilt and I haven't looked at it in a long time. But if I were to reverse photo a block, because I think all of the blocks are the same,
Yeah,
would Google help me out there?
it might, it probably, if it's like an antique, and handmade, it wouldn't obviously be able to help you like find the quilt because it sounds like it's one of a kind, but what it
Right.
helps me do is figure out what the names of some of those patterns are called.
Uh-uh.
So like, then I can put in like, Americana. I literally cannot come up with it, but there are names to all of those types of
Okay.
patterns and it'll help you come up with what those are. And then, yeah, but it would not be able to come up with it like a one of a kind thing, but it could still, it might help you. What it might come up with is other old quilts, which would, again, then I would click into those like descriptors and see like, what are other people saying about the quilts that they're selling and use that to be like, does mine have that? Does mine do that? Like,
Mhm.
and kind of go from there.
Some of it is if the quilt was made by your husband's grandmother, you don't know quite what to do.
Yeah, true. But I would say I would put that in I wouldn't necessarily say my husband's grandmother, but I would say, for example, I can't age this item exactly, but I know it was made sometime between 1900 and 1920 or whatever, whenever it was. or I know this item, you know, here's what I know about it. It's about this old and it was made in Alaska or, you know, whatever. So, but yes, you're right. You can't, there's no Google image reverse search for something made that long ago.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Katie, this has been great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's lots of information.
Yeah, sorry if it was too much, but I was like trying to kind of balance all the things I wanted to tell you guys and not overwhelm you. So hopefully it was, hopefully I got close to that balance.
That was very interesting. Any last question from anybody?
Now I'm fired up.
Good, good. So I believe in you. I think you can do it. Clear pictures, good descriptions. You're golden.
Okay.
That sounds, yeah, most important things. Yeah, great. Well,
So
thanks so much.
you're very
Thank you
welcome.
Very much.
Thanks,
You're
Katie.
very
Thank
welcome.
you.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.